Welcome to Perfectville, your first place podcast for your Miami Dolphins, part of the BLEAV Network, presented by Fanduel. I am Sam Marcoux, and breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Perfectville, the head coach search for your Miami Dolphins is now over. It's done, finito. Jon-Eric Sullivan and the team have landed on their man, and it's a guy that we all thought it was going to be, so much to the surprise of no one. Your new head coach for the Dolphins, other than Jaff Hafley, Florida defensive coordinator for the Packers over the last couple of years, 4 years as the head coach in college before that, plenty of experience in both college and the pros as a position coach on the defensive side of the ball. This is a guy who lives and breathes coaching. When you look at all the interviews, when you look at his press conferences, when you look at the reasons why he's made certain career moves and decisions in his life, it has always been about, I just want to coach. And he's going to get that opportunity to be the main coach, the head coach for the Miami Dolphins in 2026 and beyond. Details still forthcoming, but this was the guy that has long been rumored since Mike McDaniel was fired as the head coach at the end of the season to be his replacement. This was the guy that we all thought, especially when Jon-Eric Sullivan became the general manager, that we were going to zero in on. And it turns out it was true. Now, whether that's right or wrong, we're going to find out over the next days, weeks, months, years, of course. I hope our initial reaction, which is I like it, is completely wrong. I hope I have to sit on this podcast in the future and say, I apologize to Jaff Hafley. But on the surface, just taking a look at this, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to go both sides of the coin here. On the positive side, if you haven't got a chance to take a look at the interview that Jon-Eric Sullivan gave to Travis Wingfield over the weekend, first of all, hats off to Travis Wingfield. Fantastic interview. About 15 minutes goes into the philosophy, goes into what Jon-Eric Sullivan believes to be the process of winning at the franchise level, and a lot of really just good quotable nuggets in there that I took and said, I like that. I like this interview. Maybe one of the best, most candid interviews I have seen with a sitting general manager in quite some time. A refreshing breath of fresh air from what we have typically seen from Chris Grier over the years. So first of all, when you pull from that and you look at what Jon-Eric Sullivan has said and what we have heard from him since he has been on the job, was that culture means you're going to bring a process that he knows that works from Green Bay to the Miami Dolphins. That's a culture that means drafting and developing your own and keeping them. You don't want a team full of mercenaries, as he said, because then you've got competing end games. You have competing goals, and you don't want that. You want everybody focused on the same thing, the same message. And if you draft and you develop from within, you can cultivate that message and everybody can start rowing in the same direction. So when you look at the Jaff Hafley hire, you have continuity from Jon-Eric Sullivan in Green Bay and taking that process that he feels is the right way to run an organization. And you're taking one of those coaches that has been in that process for the last couple of years, has had success with that process over the last couple of years. Look, playoffs aside, the Packers defense in the regular season the last couple of years has been a top 5 defense. They've been fantastic in terms of how they've been able to be prepared, to be in the right spots, get after the quarterback, create turnovers, and just be a complementary piece of football for the offense and special teams in Green Bay. So it's no surprise when you look at what Jon-Eric Sullivan, the new general manager for the Miami Dolphins, has said in that interview, that Jaff Hafley was a guy that they targeted from the beginning. So if you look at it from, look, this is a process we know works. This is a process I believe in. This is a process that I am hired to now bring to the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go get a guy out of that process. I'm going to go get a guy that I've spent the last 2 years working with on some level, who understands what we're trying to do, and bring him here to coach. Because Jon-Eric Sullivan also made it very apparent during that interview with Travis Wingfield that he is the guy that will be the ultimate decision maker. He has control over personnel. He has control over who we're going to draft. He will take some opinions, but at the end of the day, he is hired and he is getting paid to make those decisions, and that is what him and his team are going to do, which means the head coach is in charge of coaching. Why is that? Because if you look at interviews we've had that he has done over the years, a theme comes up that all he wants to do is coach. One of the main reasons he said he left Boston College to go back to the NFL and be an assistant as opposed to, or a coordinator as opposed to a head coach, was the ability to focus back in on coaching. Because being a head coach of a major or at least a mid-major in some way, football program means you're recruiting, means you're raising money, means you're traveling all over the United States, if not all over the world, trying to find diamonds in the rough, trying to get people to say yes to giving you more money, trying to get people to say yes to being a player on your team, and takes you away from all of these other areas that he would rather be spending his time in, which is coaching. So if Jon-Eric Sullivan and the front office staff for the Miami Dolphins get to handle all the other stuff, then Jaff Hafley gets the opportunity to do exactly what he's wanted to do, which is to be a head coach of a team that is focused on coaching and implementing his scheme, and implementing his way of doing things, and hiring his staff to help him share that vision. So from the positive side of this, we are starting to see our general manager immediately put his fingerprints on this team, start to bring that process that he believes is tried and true and drop it into South Florida. No more snow, a lot more sunshine. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens next, because Jeff's going to have to hire his staff and his coordinators, in particular on offense. That's going to be the key. Is it going to be somebody like Sean Mannion, quarterback coach for the Green Bay Packers? Is it going to be more people from that Green Bay staff that we're going to poach and bring to South Florida and try to continue that process? Or is he going to reach out to people that aren't in the Green Bay organization and start to pull contacts from other franchises? I don't know. We'll find out. I don't even know if the ink is dry on the contract quite yet as we record this. This is almost minute by minute. We're learning as much as we possibly can here. You know, I give Jaff Hafley a lot of grief online. You can find me at perfectvillepod on Twitter. You could hear my disgust quite literally in my voice on the last podcast when we were going through the realistic candidates. I think I said ugh when I thought of Jaff Hafley. There's lots of jokes about his hair. There's lots of jokes about his face. I mean, people are saying he looks like the illegitimate child between Beavis and Butthead, which you can't unsee once you see that. And on the negative side, it feels like maybe this is a little bit of cronyism. It does feel like this is one guy hiring his friend, and they get to make money and party in South Beach for as long as this dream goes. And if they win a couple games, then that's a bonus. That's the negative side of this. You're hearing a lot about Jaff Hafley's time as head coach for Boston College. He was there for 4 seasons. He had 3 winning seasons. He did take them to a bowl game. I think they qualified for 3 bowl games. They went to 1. They won that game. It was against a ranked opponent, by the way. I think I was joking that it was Ball State last time we were here. But no, I mean, look, he had some success. He had some challenges. He certainly had an awful season year 3 at Boston College. I think they went 3-9. And as a result, his overall record as a head coach is a losing one at 22-26. I don't think that takes away from the fact that he had 3 winning seasons. I don't think that takes away from the fact that since he left and Bill O'Brien, yes, that Bill O'Brien took over, they've had a worse record than when Jaff Hafley was there. I don't think it takes away from the fact that Jaff Hafley has had a pretty damn good defense over the last couple of years in Green Bay, utilizing different pieces. He's actually had to change and shift his defensive mindset away from what they played in college to what they played in the pros based on the players available to him. That's the part about Jaff Hafley's game that I think intriguing. He has changed how he plays defense, how he rolls coverages, what the pressure rate is looking like from linebackers and everyone else based on who he has available to him. So when you look at this from the defensive side of the ball, the fact that the Miami Dolphins invested heavily in the defensive line last year during the draft, I think actually bodes very well for Jaff Hafley's defense in 2026. So first of all, he should be wearing a hat based on that haircut, but he should take it off and say thank you to the previous regime, because I think if those defensive linemen fit the scheme, it's going to really help Jordan Brooks. You're going to see Jordan Brooks even fly around even more in 2026. And we know Jordan Brooks is a guy that we're going to feature because Jon-Eric Sullivan in his interview even said Jordan Brooks is a guy you build around. He named 5 guys, 4 on offense, 1 guy on defense. That was Jordan Brooks. So I expect Jordan Brooks to continue to flourish, to shine, to be the guy on defense with Jaff Hafley as the head coach. I think you're going to see us get bigger. I mean, that's another thing that Jon-Eric Sullivan said is speed slows down, but size doesn't get small, or big doesn't get small, whatever the quote was. So I think you're going to see some beef. You're going to see bigger bodies on the offensive side of the ball, bigger bodies on the defensive side of the ball. I think you'll see a little bit more bump and run in terms of our defensive backs out on the boundaries once we get there. Lots to unpack, lots to unwind when it comes to Jaff Hafley on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's where he's going to focus his time for obvious reasons, which means, again, getting the offensive coordinator in here and installing whatever offense they're going to install is paramount, is crucial to making sure that we can do this the right way. But Jaff Hafley's had some success. I mean, there's lots of good players out there that have told him. Darrelle Revis, he had a hand in developing Darrelle Revis at a young age. Richard Sherman speaks highly of Jaff Hafley in their time together, I think, in San Francisco. Just how detailed he was and having the ability to explain what the game plan is going to be, what the scheme is going to be, so that the players can understand it and go out there and know exactly what they should expect to see and what they should be doing. I like that. You know, you need a good communicator when it comes to your head coach. And if you watch the interviews, if you listen to the press conferences, the guy can string a couple sentences together. It will be a little bit different than Marble Mouth that was here for the last 4 years. And I do like that too. I'm hoping we'll get some actual answers at press conferences other than fest, because that has gotten fucking absolutely asinine of 4 years of a guy who can't grasp the English language. I just think overall the package looks underwhelming. And I think that's my overall thought is this is not a guy that instills confidence. This isn't a guy when his name was announced where I was like, all right, I'm going to go buy me another hoodie. I'm going to go get me a hat. I'm going to go see if I can get season tickets renewed. It's not that. It's not that. It feels like this was the guy they wanted from the beginning, and everyone else they interviewed was just a farce. It was just window dressing because, okay, great. Now that we've satisfied the Rooney Rule and we've thrown enough candidates against the wall that it looks like we did this exhaustive search and this is who we were left with, we can announce who we wanted to announce from day one. And that feels disingenuous, even if it's not correct, but it feels disingenuous. Now, the reports that are coming out, Jaff Hafley in his first interview inspired everybody, left everybody going like, this is our guy. And it felt like Jon-Eric Sullivan was like, see, I told you I had the guy for you, and here he is. And they went through and they gave him the second interview, which was probably just, when do you want to start? That second interview was quick, and that second interview came shortly after they satisfied the Rooney Rule, which tells me they knew they were going to hire him after the first round. They probably knew they were going to hire him before the first round even got started. But I hope they get it right. I hope this is the right guy. Next year's going to be rough. I don't see the Miami Dolphins having a quick turnaround like the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't see the Miami Dolphins having a quick turnaround like the Denver Broncos or the New England Patriots. They've got a lot of mess that they got to clean up from the previous regime. They got to get out from this Tua Tagovailoa contract. They got to figure out a way to get enough people under contract so they can field a team. And then you're going to have some bumps and bruises. You've got a defense to instill. You got an offense to instill. You've got a culture that you got to start to build. There's a lot that's going to be flying around. And Miami Dolphins fans they're going to ask us to be patient yet again. And I think that's the part that's really bothering Dolphins fans. If I could put my finger on the pulse of this, it's not the haircut, although that doesn't help. It's not the face, although, again, that certainly doesn't help. The nepotism, if you want to call it that, between Jon-Eric Sullivan and his friend from the last 2 years being hired, sure. But that's actually every job. Everybody hires people that they know and are comfortable with for the most part. That's not unique to the NFL. I think what it is that Miami Dolphins fans are tired. They're just fucking tired. I am tired. We want to win. We want to see success. We want to have some sort of hope. And when you look at some of the names that were available and some names that are available, it felt like this was an opportunity to go get a generational coach. Go get somebody like a Sean McDermott who fell out of the tree today, who's got plenty of AFC East experience, who's got plenty of playoff experience. And maybe he needs that extra whatever that Miami could have brought him to get him to the finish line and get this team into the playoffs every single year and win a few games. Chris Shula has the last name. He has the pedigree. I mean, how awesome was that Rams team against the Bears? What a game that was. Why would you not pursue Shula even more? I know you can't talk to him right now because they're still playing, but would it hurt to wait? Tomlin wasn't realistic, I don't think. Stefanski didn't want to come here. John Harbaugh didn't want to come here. I get it. but it just felt like every stone was not unturned. It felt like they turned over one stone and said, yep, this is pretty good. And then there's these other stones over here. We'll just kind of kick at them a little bit. It's just, maybe that's what it'll be. One stone unturned. We're going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to leave all of them unturned. We're going to pick up one, and it's going to say Hafley underneath it, and then we're just going to kick the other ones around a little bit and make some noise. But it's a big swing from this particular point of view. If this is wrong, if Hafley comes in and he loses the locker room and they go, 2-15 and it's a disaster, Jon-Eric Sullivan may see himself out of a job just as quickly as he got one. You cannot have it bottom out. I mean, even if it does, and you can blame the previous regime and say, look, we had to clear out all this stuff in order to even get our vision set, I don't think it's going to fly. So Jaff Hafley's going to have some success. He's going to have to develop someone. He's going to have to win a game or two that we didn't expect them to win in 2026 in order for this to even give a little bit of glimmer of hope for Miami Dolphins fans everywhere. But who knows? I mean, look, this isn't a sexy pick. And if we're talking about South Florida, it's not uncommon to see Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Bugattis just driving down the street, so much so that it becomes almost background noise. You're not even impressed because you're seeing it over and over and over again. But what sticks out in a land full of sports cars is a beat up pickup roll down. That's what your eye goes to when you're rolling through that, and you see all of these sexy, beautiful, sleek sports cars, and all of a sudden you just see Mater rolling down the street backwards. And maybe that's what this team needs. Maybe they don't need a flashy sports car of a head coach. They need a beat-up pickup truck that still runs, that's consistent, and gets you from point A to point B as directly as it possibly can. Or maybe I'm just smoking the hopium because I've got no choice other than to root for the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who right now is now Jaff Hafley, former defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, former head coach at Boston College. And now he's your head coach for the Miami Dolphins. I'd like to hear from you guys. I'll send this out. Shoot me an email, perfectvillepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter or X at perfectvillepod. Let me know what you think. I'm sure there are opinions out there. And you know what? If he wins, we're all getting buzz cuts. If he has a winning record, I'll put it this way. If he has a winning record in 2026, if Jaff Hafley comes to Miami, instills his defense, hires the right coordinator for offense, and this team goes out and has a winning record, I'm talking 9 wins or more in 2026, I will rock a flat top buzz cut for an entire year after that. I will start the Jaff Hafley movement for Miami Dolphins fans everywhere and get myself a buzz cut and look ridiculous, but I will do it if Hafley can get us a winning season year one. That's the challenge. That's the math. That's what we're rooting for. That's our rally cry. I will happily look like a moron for a year if he can make our franchise look like not a moron for a year. With that being said, I'm not going to root against the man, not right away. I'm going to give him a day before I, go register firejeffhafley.com. But I hope he's the right guy. I hope Jon-Eric Sullivan got it right. I hope Jaff Hafley is the guy that comes in here and rights the ship for the Miami Dolphins. And a year from now, you guys are watching me live stream a buzz cut haircut. But until then, just remember, look, nobody's perfect except for you and I. So on behalf of myself, the entire BLEAV Network, presented by Fanduel, the only thing left to say is welcome to Perfectville, Jaff Hafley, and goodbye from Perfectville to the rest of y'all. Later.